Welcome to the conversation at the New York State Writers Institute. I'm Kaori Otera Chen, graduate assistant of the New York State Writers Institute at the University at Albany. Before introducing our guest today, I would like to remind you that you can find us on website nyswritersinstitute.org, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I am really happy and honored with our guest today, weavers Chen, Rowell, and Sandy Lommen. Welcome, Chen and Sandy. Thank you for taking your time to be with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you today?
Well, it's a good day today.
Sorry.
Well, I want to start with asking you about your encounter with weaving. For me, as the two of you have already known, I started weaving in 2018. Um, one of our fellow weavers brought me to Day Guild meeting, and I walked into Angelique's house, and I saw lots of weavers talking and gathering, and Tommy introduced me to you all, saying that like Kaori wants to become a weaver, and I was a little bit surprised because I really didn't know if I wanted
we
to
decided
become.
You were going to be a weaver.
Yes, I was very curious about weaving since I have been studying weaving with my advisor, and Professor Little is an expert in textile studies, and while taking his classes, I learned about women's lives and weavings and how these two things are right intertwined. But I was really not sure, to be honest, if I really want to become a weaver, but I wanted to know who weavers are and what weavers are actually doing. And I remember, I think it was a Sandy, thinking you asked me, like, oh, why you want to become a weaver? And that really shocked me because I really didn't have an answer. But I thought Tommy was so clever. She said, well, because Kaori means to weave.
Oh,
and
yes.
So my name actually, yes, she's right. My name means to weave, which I even didn't remember. But and I know
Amazing.
my father actually almost like a mistakenly named. My name supposed to be Kaoru instead of Kaori, but I think it still can mean weaving, depending on which Chinese character we use. But anyway, so I was very surprised. But then Tommy said, oh, my name means to weave. And I thought it was interesting too. But then I remember following weekend, I think Sandy helped me to actually get in touch with Pat, my weaving teacher, and then I started going to her house every weekend and learn weaving. And I really liked how I felt when I start to touch the yarn while I was learning how to make a bout and how to make a prepare warp. And Pat was sitting like next to me and like guiding how I should move the yarn on the warping board. And I really liked the feeling of like touching yarn and like kind of navigating the thread, but at the same time, I really felt that I was going to um, like space where there would be only Yan and me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after I moved to the US in 2010, um, I I'm often lonely, and I don't think I really made a like close friends like you, Sandy, and Jen before that, and I had a lot of like grief and sadness in my heart. So when I was touching the yarn, it just I know it maybe it's kind of therapeutic, but I feel like it was more than that.
Yeah. That's beautiful, Kaori.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy that I have met you and I joined this group of weavers, and that
Yes, you're quite
really
an addition.
thank you. It lightened my life. I I think I'm a much happier person than before,
That's
and I
wonderful.
like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yarn does that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how about you two? I think I'm gonna ask uh, Jen about this fast. Um,
Okay.
yeah, how did you
Sure.
start weaving?
Well, when I think about my path, I think back to my mom, who was quite a seamstress. She sewed a lot of our clothes. She taught me to sew. And so that dealing with fabric and fiber goes back to that when I was a child. And then later on, I did embroidery and cross stitch, that kind of thing. So I've had that. I've needed to have something of fiber in my hands for quite some time. And then I began to feel drawn to weaving. I don't know why, but in 2004, I was fortunate to have the opportunity to learn to weave. And so started to do that. And now I really enjoy it. Like you, Kari, when you said, it's just you and the thread. It's very grounding, almost meditative for me when it's going well. When it's going well,
Right.
it's very grounding for me. The weaving, I love putting together colors, experimenting with different things. I guess I do a lot of experimenting at the loom. I'll say, well, let's see how this might look together. I don't tend to say, okay, I'm going to make this and then it will look exactly like I planned. It always changes. Which sometimes is disastrous.
Oh.
But one of our weaving friends said, well, if it's not right, it's not finished. So I keep that in mind, that you just kind of keep working with it. But I love the tactile nature of weaving. Different fibers feel different and behave differently. And it's a whole other area of learning for me. And I just have so much to learn.
Yeah.
And being part of the guild for me is great too, because there's people are so encouraged. Sandy has been so encouraging of me, along with others.
Of me too.
I remember, Sandy, when I came to you with one of my initial pieces that I wanted to make into something, and you said, "I'll give you courage." I remember that. And so the weavers are generally a pretty grounded, positive group of people, and encourage each other, and I really enjoy that. And to see how people's creativity comes out in such different ways. So that's something about how I've kind of gotten into it, I would say.
Can I show people your weaving?
Sure.
Maybe you can tell us about what you, yeah.
Sure. So,
hold on.
Oh, that's you.
Different. I know.
That's me.
This is what I want to show.
There we go. Yeah. So these pieces are part of kind of a collection that I've really enjoyed working on. The thing that ties all of these together is that they're all made from cut up remnants of something else. I'll find something, you know, at the Goodwill or someplace, or I'll have something that I really like the fabric, and it's no longer of use as it is, or I think it would make an interesting thing to weave with. So I cut it up into strips. The blue on the right was a blouse that was a silk blouse, and I cut it up into strips and put it together as a scarf. And the piece in the back was made from a sari that I cut up, and so that's a poncho. And then the others, similar things. That's part of the playfulness to me, to see, well, let's just see if we put these colors together. So I like the idea of reclaiming things, repurposing things, and seeing what new things might come out of those things. Sometimes they're rags. I started interest in rag rugs, and I took a rag rug workshop, and so some of the things I learned there I've used in these smaller pieces. And the idea with the rag, well, I had a whole pile of jeans from leftover from a church rummage sale, and I cut those all up into strips, and I made rugs out of those too. So, you know, all different kinds of things, but that's the kind of common theme in these things. That's not the only thing that I do, but that was kind of interesting to me.
It is, and I think I like the idea of you said, like, reclaiming, repurposing, and I think we live in the world where I know not everybody, but many of us just buy stuff and then throw away, and we don't necessarily think about how things are made and where it goes after you throw them away. But there are a lot of things we can actually use it.
Yeah, it's still beautiful, but it's not useful in that form anymore. And so we do something different. It's kind of a nice metaphor for life too, you know?
Yes, I agree. and something that I want to teach my students.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Jen. Now I'm gonna ask Sandy about your story. Uh,
Hmm. Jan and I have a lot of similarities because my mother also was very good with knitting needles and sewing and taught me early on, and I enjoyed that a lot. I also love animals and wanted to be a farmer. And so we were able to move to the place we have now and have animals, which got me sheep. And then I could spin. And when my husband and I had more sweaters than we knew what to do with, it was time to do something else with the yarn because I wasn't going to stop. And I happened on a loom. Somebody, the person I was buying sheep from was also a weaver and a spinner. So I was able to, oh, I'm so sorry. I've got an alarm going on. Thank you. That's going to go off every 5 minutes for another half hour if I didn't do that. So we have this little house with little animals running around and a lot of wool. And in this 20 by 20 house where we lived, slept, and cooked, I brought home a 45-inch loom and plunked it in the middle of this silly surroundings. And we worked around this loom for, well, we built it around ourselves. So we had a house that we built around ourselves, and in this, we were going to build this sewing room, or it turned out to be a weaving room, and it's the size of the original. It's an 18 by 20. And I have 3 walls of yarn that just wrap me up and please me. And I have this wonderful life and these wonderful colors. And if I happen to leave my coffee cup in this room overnight and then I need it for breakfast, if I come in and get my coffee cup, I can't possibly sit still for breakfast. I just have to, something has caught my eye that oh, that's what I was doing. And it's time to do something else. So it just became a passion for me. And I took this passion, and that was in 1980. So in the year 2000, I was seriously trying to sell clothes, make clothes for sale. And I had a lot of clothes, but I didn't have a lot of customers. So that took about 5 or 6 years to develop a good customer base and an understanding of what they wanted, what sizes worked, and how to do this. And so quantity and speed became goals of mine, besides making everything a one of a kind.
Yeah.
And that just kept going because my brain is exploding with possibilities, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. And my darling husband seems to just think, fine, she's happy, she's doing a good job. It is not a living, but it's a decent addition to our life.
Yeah. I saw him just actually walking.
Yes, there he is. I just
Leo is there.
Yep. Well, the alarm was pill time, so I'm delighted that he's up there. I can actually turn this thing off now when it goes again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we work around what has been given to us, and I've been given spare time, a beautiful life, cooperative husband, and whatever I want to do is what I get to do. And playing with beautiful colors and fine people. Oh, the people you meet weaving is just the customers, the people that are interested, your fellow weavers. It's all just so much fun. So that's my story, and that's why I can't possibly quit this yet.
Yet.
I'm not a spring chicken anymore. It's going to, at some point, I will slow down. I've noticed with this virus that's contained us and separated us from our friends. But as much as fun as Zoom is, and it's some connection, it's not the same as hugging and touching the garment. Oh, look at that, and you get to feel. Or
Absolutely. It's so tactile.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's actually part of my inspiration. So I
Mhm.
haven't been weaving as much, although that's a surprise to me because I thought with all the spare time I would just be able to crank stuff out. But I have to see people buying them, or see people happy with them, or see people wearing them. And I got excited again when the talk about the show and sale stepped up. At first I resented the intrusion because I'm enjoying my little cocoon here. But then I said, no, this is going to be fun. and it is. And I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Aww.
Last night, a couple of our weaver friends who have started the Professional Weaver Society did a panel on the value of cloth. And they talked about the financial value, but also the emotional value of cloth. And I think that's what you're talking about, Sandy, is the delight that comes with knowing that somebody is going to have your weaving in their home, and be able to feel it and know that it came from you. It's just not the same as, buying a jacket or buying a towel that has come from who knows where. And it's just not the same drying dishes with something from wherever, stored to be filled in. Yeah, it's really an emotional valuing, emotional connection that continues to it's life-giving. It's really life-giving.
Yeah. Can I show Sandy you are weaving?
I'd love it.
Me too. Let me see.
There we are. They all have stories.
I would like to know those stories.
Well, the elephants that you are modeling is actually a couch throw. And it came from my mother's death, the idea and the interest in this symbology of the mother and baby. And it was very meaningful to me when I was paging through a magazine and saw this ad that had a mother and baby elephant, and it said protection and growth. And I burst into tears. So that just got to me. This was probably within 6 months of my mother's death. And I said, oh, elephants, I can weave that. And I was just thinking of the long lines of elephants and elephant legs. But our friend Karen DeMiss, who has also recently passed, has said, oh, here, look what you can do. And she helped me with the weave structure that this is, where you can have a background and then you draw pictures. And it was just, it represents my mother's protection and the growth I got from her. And then it now, with the passing of our friend Karen, it represents the interaction and the perception of one person added to my life. And then I can augment this, because the first elephants I made were 15 years ago. And then this winter, while Karen was in a nursing home, but still totally lucid and still very, very instructive on how I could do this better. You put a little arch in there. And then she had an aide in that was helping her, a nurse's aide, who said legs need to be longer, because she was from India and this was their god. This was an animal they worshipped. And there's just so much wrapping around this. And now because when somebody buys something, it finishes the garment to me. This couch throw is now at the home of a friend of ours. And I just love the idea of this living at Angelique's house and across her new sofa, and that she likes it so much, and that we are there protecting her, or I get to go to her house and see this. And I find that very moving. So the whole story is wonderful. The jacket next to it, that big coat, big jacket actually, is a painted warp, and it's or actually a dyed warp. And I am enjoying learning to dye colors and get what I want, or be in control of the craziness that happens with dyes. And I'm enjoying it a lot. And the top two jackets are from the warp that just this
The ocean warp.
The ocean warp. And that just came off of the loom last night. The last of the weaving came off of the loom last night, and it was stormy ocean, not peaceful ocean. That was fun. So they have names, and it means something. Yeah. And I make stories up sometimes. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sandy.
My pleasure.
Thank you for sharing. I was almost crying. I thought about my mom too. Yeah. Well, today, talking about telling story through weaving, I have a particular piece that you two wove before, and now I'm gonna move on to those stories. I'm going to share Jen's table runner. And then I saw, Jen, I saw your table runner. I remember this one evening sitting in the guild meeting, and you showed up in front of all of us and started telling us your very personal story, just like the story that Sandy just shared with us. And after I heard the story, and your runners are passed on to the hands of all the weavers, and I felt like I was even not sure if it is okay to touch this because it's so special. But I remember the feel, like all your runners are like kind of running through our hearts in the meeting. So may I ask you to tell us about the story?
Sure, Kaori. A couple of years ago, my dad at 95 passed away, and he was very beloved, of course, and Mom and we were left with questions of what to do with his things. And sometimes we like to find someone who can use something that wear something that would be also usable, meaningful. But I asked my mom if it would be okay if I used his shirts in the weaving. So I took about a dozen of his shirts, and I decided to make a long warp, and then to cut up the fabric, as I had explained I'd done with other things, cut up the shirts into strips and weave with them. The process of cutting them up was very touching for me. It was really part of my grieving. His flannel shirt that I had seen him wear so often, his summer shirts, different plaids, all of that, were now a pile of just strips of cloth. And what I did was I wove these table runners. So the long part, the warp, is the same for all of them, and then each shirt became a runner, and I gave one of those runners to each person in the family, my mom having first choice, of course. And the thing is, in our family, Dad always sat at the head of the table. We gathered around that. We are a sit around the table for dinner kind of family, with Dad always at the head. And so it was the idea of it being something for the table was meaningful to me. And so each of my sisters and nieces and nephews, children, have one of these table runners. And so, you know, if you just had a shirt, Grandpa's shirt, it would be kind of sad, I think. Yeah. What do you do with it? Mm. But because it became something new, it now can be a reminder of him and our gatherings around the table. And so they are special in a new way, and his presence is remembered in a new way. So that's the story of the table runners. It was very therapeutic for me to take that grief and to make something different and beautiful with it that I could share.
Thank you, Jen. This is very, very special. And thank you for sharing story
Thank you
with
for
us.
asking, Kaori. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. I know Sandy has something different but similar. You going to show us the real one?
It's a story remarkably similar to Jan's. My mother was taking care of my father for 4 years before he died from assorted strokes. And she's pretty tired. And after he died, she packed his ties in a suitcase and enough clothes for a couple of days and came out to my house. My mother, with all her aging, she was 85 by this time, and with Parkinson's. She'd had Parkinson's for 12 years by this time. Had sort of been robbed of a bunch of her skills and quite a bit of her energy. But she arrives with this suitcase full of ties from my father, the clothes horse. Gee, where did I get my interest in clothing? He had over 100 ties. And she said, you must be able to do something with these. And says I, how about if we cut them up and make you a coat? And she was delighted. The other thing that was so fun about that was because it didn't matter what the strips looked like, how accurate she would be in the cutting. So I gave her a piece of scissors, and her clumsy hands that had once been so graceful and accurate could make these strips of any size, any miscuts. They just became wonderful strips of cloth. And so that's what is in this coat. I had this cranberry colored warp on the loom, and through spaced the strips of tie with strips of much finer cloth. So it wasn't too heavy, although it's a remarkably heavy fabric. They didn't end up nice and soft like Jan's did. This is just one awesome armored jacket.
Mm.
She also lives in Minnesota, which means she wanted a really warm winter coat. So I have a wool underlining and then a reflective lining in it. So it's so heavy that when she got home, her neighbor had to help her put it on.
My gosh.
I mean, I certainly didn't get it. I took it to her and then noticed that she needed help getting it on. But it was a joy. She loved it, and she would go to church in it. And any other time that her neighbor Mary would take her someplace, which was really quite often. And I did a little bit of piecing, got a couple quilting books and found a heart motif, because that was something that Mom and Dad did between themselves. When he made her a garden gate for her garden, he carved out a heart in the middle of the garden gate. And these are
beautiful.
Yeah, just interesting ties of his. Had some fabric left over and made my brother. Said, "You want a vest?" And he said, "Sure." So I sent it to him. And he looked at the binding on his vest. He said, "I wore that tie to the senior prom."
Oh, wow.
So it just kept having more and more meaning to it. And it was just a joy. So I like that.
It's beautiful. I have a picture here, so maybe people can see it in a close look. Yeah. You're talking about this heart motif?
That's a heart, and then in the center of the back is also a heart. It doesn't show up real well, but yeah.
That's beautiful, Sandy.
Thank you.
It's very beautiful.
Good for a Minnesota winter, too.
Yes, that worked.
That worked.
It wasn't any doubt on when my mother died who got the coat, because my sister lives in California and does not need this heavy a coat. So I got it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Are you going to wear this?
Oh, I do
winter?
wear it. Yeah, it's my winter coat. Yes, it is.
Beautiful.
You haven't seen me in this yet, huh? Yep, it fits.
I might have actually seen you wearing this last winter or even one before.
Very likely.
But I didn't know about the story until recently.
Yeah.
Wow. Very nice.
Thank you.
And I noticed that when we have a guild meeting, so we get together and we share what we have woven. And also stories, usually stories that comes with what people made. And I think this guild, this group of women, I'm very impressed.
And men.
That's right, group of weavers. And I'm very just like how we support each other. And it's just, I think it's we are a very special group. and I'm very happy to be part of the group.
I think it's um, encouraging people to bring their own gifts, their own stories to the weaving. So whatever gets people jazzed about weaving, whether it's simple or elaborate, whether it's very technical, or it's people are very encouraging of figuring out what your path is and going for it, you know, which is a great spirit to be part of. Yeah.
I know the guild will have a show and sell in November. Maybe Jen, can you tell us a little bit about the event, our big event?
Sure. Our big event, show and sale, is going to be November 21st and 22nd. And while normally we all get together and pet each other's weavings, feel all the wonderful fibers and everything, this year we're adapting and doing this virtually. And there have been a lot of people creatively figuring out how we can make that very interesting. So plans are for a fashion show, which I understand is going to actually be recorded outside on a sunny day this weekend, right, Sandy? Is that, yeah?
Yes,
Yep.
it's
Sunny.
supposed to be 48 degrees.
Yes, well, your coats will be very popular then.
That's right.
But sometime in that schedule, there'll be a fashion show. There's a wonderful spinning demonstration that will be available from Joan Jensen. And we're going to have a farm tour and studio tours, I think. So there are a lot of things that we're going to be able to do that we wouldn't be able to do if we were all in one place. So it's trying something different this year. And the access to that will be through the Weavers Guild website, and that's Hudson Mohawk Weavers Guild.org, hmwg.org. And you can find us on Facebook too. And so it should be fun, a different kind of fun, but we'll learn from this. And that's the plan.
Wonderful. Are you going to sell something this year?
I hope to. Yeah, I'm working on that. That's new for me. So we'll see.
And Sandy, you as well?
Yes, awkward because I don't have a website for anybody to go to, but what I have offered is my phone number and my email, and a chance for somebody to make arrangements to come out and see things. I will set up a little shop in my garage. Wonderful. And make an appointment for somebody to come see what they'd like to see. I have about 30 or 40 garments for sale.
Wow.
But it's going to take a very serious amount of dedication for somebody to bother to come out to my house. So it's going to be different, but I like the idea of staying in front of people's vision so that they will see, yep, she's still there, and yes, she's still got stuff. We'll see what comes of it. Might be better than I'm expecting, but I don't know.
So what we'll do is we'll have links, in your case, Sandy, it's phone or email, but also for weavers that do have a website, there'll be links to all those different things so people can shop online. So
Good. So all the information can be found at our website, Hudson
Yeah.
Mohawk Weavers Guild.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And it's going to be November 21st.
21st and 22nd.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to end this conversation. Um, I know it's very brief, um, but I'm very happy to talk to you today, and I really appreciate that you took your time to share your story with me and with um, people who will see this. Um, yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Kari.
You're
Thank you
So
for
great.
asking us to be part of this.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Sandy.